This is Dr. Gary Kellner, and I would like to welcome you to today's edition of Fair Game. Now, if we told you in advance that we were going to talk about tariffs, that might be the cure for insomnia. But President Donald Trump has done something that no American president has done in living memory, and that is to use tariffs as an instrument of American foreign policy, rewarding those who cooperate with the United States and penalizing those who don't. Now, one of the worst kept secrets of the war is that we have had some of our greatest difficulties with our allies. Take, for example, South Korea. There wouldn't be a South Korea without the deaths of 34,000 Americans who helped turn the tide against North Korean aggression in 1950. The prosperity of that country was made possible by American blood, sweat, and tears. But beginning in the 1970s, South Korea, from the top, targeted specific sectors of the American economy. Now, because the government doesn't run our economies, and we're not that involved in certain sectors, we were vulnerable. Televisions, shoes, steel. Japan and Germany, present allies, erstwhile enemies, targeted our steel industry. And we took serious hits in the 1970s and the 80s. Well, Donald Trump was not going to put up with it. And despite the cries of our allies and the cries of some people in the financial community in this country, Donald Trump began to waive tariffs as an instrument of policy in the faces of our allies. So he put tariffs on almost everybody. Well, there's a problem with this strategy. The Constitution of the United States enumerates taxation and tariffs as powers of the United States Congress. Article 2 enumerates the powers and responsibilities of the president. Nowhere in Article 2 is the president given the power to do excises and taxes. Congress of the United States has given the president legal authority to raise tariffs under emergency conditions. Well, if you watch the presidency for very long, you learn that almost anything can be denominated as an emergency. And you also learn that from incoming administrations that there are always crises that absolutely require legislation within 100 days. Now, I've spent a lot of my life working with legislators, and I've spent a lot of my life studying the history of this republic. And here's one thing that we know, that with the exception, and perhaps I should say the possible exception, of the Congress that came in with President Roosevelt in 1933, there are very few emergencies that require legislation to be done in 100 days. In fact, some of the worst legislation that is ever done in this country is processed in 100 days. If you don't believe that, just look at a horrible piece of legislation called No Child Left Behind, which has managed to leave millions of children behind. But I digress. It didn't take long for lawsuits to be filed in federal court to stay the president's orders, executive orders, to levy tariffs. Well, it worked its way to the Supreme Court. And in a stunning rebuke to President Trump, a court that is overwhelmingly Republican, where 6 of the 9 justices are card-carrying conservatives. I don't know if those 6 would even be admitted to a meeting of the American Civil Liberties Union. I highly doubt any of them would want to go. A court that aligns with his principles to a great degree and has given him a series of wins in both his first term and his second. Slapped him on the wrist. And he said, Mr. President, the Constitution of this country, that is our operating system, does not give you the authority to levy tariffs. Well, the president was not happy, and neither was he pleased. And like most American presidents who get their hands slapped by the court, he struck back. The first one of those was in the presidency of Andrew Jackson. And Jackson, on an executive order, by the way, was going to remove the Cherokees from the southeastern United States and make them walk to Oklahoma. That was because this country needed their territory. And they did think that there was gold on some of it in northeast Georgia. Neither the Congress nor the Supreme Court agreed with President Jackson. That never was going to stop Andrew Jackson. Well, it was tested in the courts. And the court said the president did not have the right to remove the Cherokee, who had a treaty with the United States of America to the end of time to possess their tribal lands. Jackson's response was, Mr. Marshall has made his decision. Now let him enforce it. During the Civil War, a number of Abraham Lincoln's generals were arresting people of dubious loyalty to the Union. Some of them were citizens, some of them were actually elected officials, and they were holding them without charges. Well, Mr. Lincoln responded to their pleas by suspending habeas corpus, which requires that you either file charges against somebody or you release them. You cannot imprison an American citizen indefinitely without identifying what they are being charged with. Mr. Lincoln simply ignored it. And when he was pressed, he said, if I must bend the Constitution to save it, I will do so. You know, presidents really don't like being reversed. Now, Mr. Trump has upped the game. He referred to the justices as fools and lapdogs. And in his State of the Union address, for which 4 of them decided not to appear, he chastised them publicly for daring to disagree with him. Now, again, I want to say a few words in support of the president. He is certainly not alone in his feelings of supremacy. Barack Obama has said famously that anyone who runs for president is a megalomaniac. Well, Socrates said, like is drawn to like, and like is known by like. So I suppose President Obama knows what he's talking about. But that public takedown of the Supreme Court is unprecedented in American history. When the president is right, when he makes a good case for his actions, regardless of our personal political leanings, I think we owe it to him and we owe it to the Republic to support him because he is our president. We only have one. But when the president is wrong, the Supreme Court has a legal obligation to call him to account. And that, friends, is what makes the United States of America different than presidential republics, where the president is the ultimate power. Our founders pointedly made the legislature the first branch of government. That's why their responsibilities are described in Article 1 of the Constitution. And the president, as chief executive, is there to faithfully execute the laws of the United States. That is Article 2. And it is the job of the judiciary to wear the striped shirt and blow the whistle when anybody breaks the rules of the operating system. That's what makes America durable. Every president has things he does well, and he has things he does not do well. History will judge them on that. But in this particular case, the Supreme Court certainly was within its constitutional responsibility to call the president's hand. This is Dr. Gary Kellner, and this is Fair Game.